Good Shabbos. This week is Parshas Kisavo, but I would like to focus on the Haftorah and specifically just one sentence in the Haftorah. And this is a section from Yeshayahu, from Isaiah, and it's one of the 7 Haftorahs of Nechama of consolation following the destruction of the temple, which we memorialized on Tisha B'Av. And it says that in the time of Mashiach, in Messianic times, says V'holchu goyim la'orech, the nations will follow or go by the light of your nation. U'malachim l'noga zarchech, and kings will follow the brightness of your shine. There's another reference earlier in Isaiah that we should be an or lagoyim, that the Jews will be a light unto the nations. And I don't believe it's just a prophecy for the future, although that is what Isaiah is saying, but we have an obligation to create that at the present moment. We should always be an Or Lagoyim, a light unto the nations. And in the past year, it's just very difficult to understand our position amongst the nations of the world. On the one hand, personally, and many of us understand what is happening in Israel and the way the nation of Israel, the state of Israel, is defending itself and fighting a war is actually extremely moral and ethical. And it does present a light unto the nations. I like to quote John Spencer, who says that in the history of urban warfare, there's no nation that represents the epitome of morality in dealing in war in that kind of situation more than the Israeli army. The ratio of civilian deaths to militant deaths or terrorist deaths in this case is lower than it was in any other warfare that happened in urban areas, even including the latest wars in Iraq and Afghanistan fought by the United States and other countries. So on the one hand, I look at it and I say, wow, we're a light unto the nations. On the other hand, all you have to do is open up a newspaper or watch the news and see that the nations hold us up to a standard which is impossible to live by. And they say that we're an apartheid nation, that we're acting out genocide against the Palestinians. And no matter how much it's a lie, we have to deal with the fact that we are not becoming a light unto the nations. And the question is, are we doing something wrong? And some people would say, yes, we are. We have to be extra special careful. We should not go to war. We should be somewhat pacifist and just accepting any peace offer that exists, even if it's maybe harmful in the long run. And I think that's, in my personal opinion, makes very little sense. But the argument is, how are we seen by the nations of the world? And I would suggest that we could be a light unto the nations, but the nations have to be able to look and watch us and see us. If you have blinders on, then they won't see the light. If they put on if they put a wall between us and their eyes, we won't see a light. They won't see our light. If they put a somewhat of a filter on and it's translucent, some light will get through. And I think that's maybe where we are today. I think most people in the world understand that Israel is a moral nation. They see us when there's any tragedy throughout the world. Israel's the first to send out um, uh, care and making sure and setting up a field hospital and dealing with any problem that exists anywhere in the world. And they must realize also that Israeli hospitals still take care of people in Gaza or in Syria who are harmed. We care about human beings, but we still have to defend ourselves. So I think, yes, there are some people who put a barrier between us and the light, but we have to still remain to be that light. We cannot stop being that light. Hopefully one day the light will break through those barriers and the people of the world will see the light that we shine forth. But in the meantime, we have to make sure we don't lose that status for ourselves and that we don't fall prey to the same problems that exist in the world at large. We cannot promote death to civilians. We cannot look the other way when sometimes settlers in Israel are attacking Palestinians. And the reason I hesitate is because that's not something that individuals, especially the United States and Canada, are controlling. But I think we have to make sure that we don't defend that type of behavior. We shouldn't just be 100% defending Israel when we think there's something wrong. We have to realize for ourselves and make sure we explain to others that, yes, we are a light unto the nations. We do act morally and ethically. And when there are people, whether it's individuals or groups of individuals in Israel or anywhere in the world, if they're Jewish individuals who don't act in that way, we don't defend them. We have to recognize that there is a problem. And we have to try to stop that from being a problem. So that's, on the one hand, how we could act as a light unto the nations, making sure that we don't forget that we have to judge ourselves also as carefully as we judge others. And then there's one other aspect which I'll quote from Mishlei, from Proverbs. It's in chapter 24 of Proverbs, and there's two things there. One, it says that for though the righteous one may fall 7 times, he will arise, but the wicked ones will stumble through evil. That's just saying that we shouldn't give up hope. No matter how many times we have trouble, this might be speaking in a different context, but we could translate it into what's happening today. We might have trouble, we might have problems, we go through different tragedies through Jewish history, but no matter how many times we'll arise, if we remain righteous, if we remain those light, if we remain to be the light unto the nations, we will arise. But the wicked ones, they'll fall, they'll stumble, because when you represent evil, when you do something which is really horrible, and you stand for that, as the Hamas and Hezbollah, Iran, and so many of these others stand for, they will fall and they will disappear. Israel will not disappear. But I want to go on and read the next sentence in Mishlei, in Proverbs. And it says, when your foe falls, be not glad. B'nefol ayivcha al tismach, a very famous statement. When your enemy falls, do not be glad. B'kashlo ayaga libecha. And when he stumbles, let your heart not be joyous, lest God will see it and and it will be displeasing in his eyes, and he will turn his anger from him to you. So it's really telling us something else. Like this past week, I think we were all proud of what Israel did. Israel blew up these pagers and walkie-talkies in the hands of the Hezbollah terrorists. And the way I understand it, it's a brilliant move, and it targeted the terrorists. Now, of course, there are some innocent people who would have died. But again, when you're fighting terrorists amongst the civilian population, that's probably one of the best ways to have done it. But yet, again, the newspapers and you listen to the pundits on TV, on cable news, they call it indiscriminate killing, and what's the value? They ask questions which do not make much sense. So I think what we're doing, what Israel's doing, is the right approach and is the right way. But we have to make sure that even though we're correct, we shouldn't fall prey to what Mishlei, what Proverbs tells us we should not fall prey to. Do not gloat and be happy when your enemy falls. Yes, it's hard not to celebrate the fact that we've been successful and killed or maimed our enemies, and therefore remove some of the danger that is posed to the Jews in Israel and to Jews worldwide. But we have to make sure that we don't just see it as, wow, we're happy. We have to be sad when people lose their lives, be happy that we're saved. There's a big difference between celebrating someone's death and rejoicing in the fact that you survived. And that's, I think, where we have to draw the line. And we have to make sure also that others who don't see things the way we see it shouldn't see that, oh, we're just happy that people die. We're just happy that we're killing people. And we have to make sure we don't do that. So we have to realize, and this, of course, relates to every day in our lives also. No matter whether we're right or wrong, we should never rejoice in somebody else's failure. We always have to have a little, even when someone does something wrong and deserves punishment, we shouldn't be happy. We should be happy maybe that the world is saved from somebody who's doing evil, but we also have to be sad that some human being has lost his life or is thrown in prison for that matter. And therefore, even in our everyday lives, we have to make sure that if we're having an argument with someone and we seem to win, we shouldn't be we shouldn't be gloating over over those that disagree with us, but rather we should be sympathetic and empathetic to others. And hopefully, we're in the month of El. Rosh Hashanah is coming here very quickly. If we treat others in that way, God will treat us in the same way. That although we do fail and we do sin and we do make mistakes, God will not be happy in punishing us, but rather He'll be happy and rejoicing in making sure that He lets us survive, that we will actually live through Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and make sure that we're given the seal of life, the Chasima Tova of having Chaim, of having life for this coming year. Good Shabbos.